Hello, it's Miss Beatty here, and today we are learning to convert fractions into decimals, and we are specifically looking at hundredths. We've been doing a little work on tenths, so now we are looking at hundredths today. Just remember, a decimal is a way of writing a number that's not whole, so we're just working with part of that number, and that's why they link in so well with our fractions. Now, a hundredth is something that's out of 100. So 71 hundredths is a fraction, okay? That is what it looks like as a fraction. Converting that into a decimal is just 0.71. And if we look at it as picture form or shape form, 71 hundredths looks like this. So there's 100 total pieces and there's 71 pieces colored in. Okay, looking at our place value chart again, we were obviously looking at tenths. Now we are looking at hundredths, okay? So if, for example, if I had 1,245.13, okay, we're looking at the hundredths column today. Okay, so remember, I've already said this, that a decimal fraction can be out of 10, 100, or 1,000. We've done 10, so we can tick that off. Now we're looking at 100. So when you are asked to write a fraction as a decimal that is out of 100, it is essentially saying 45 divided by 100. And like we did with our tenths, we moved our decimal point back one space, but we're working with 100. So we need to move our decimal point back two spaces, 1, 2. The point would go here and our placeholder needs to go here. So the answer is 0.45. If we did it for this, now I'll do it a wee bit over so that there's more space, is the same as saying 87 divided by 100. Okay, 87 divided by 100. So my decimal point needs to move back two spaces, 1, 2. Put the point here and our placeholder, our 0 goes here. 87 hundredths is the same as 0.87. What about 235 over 100? Well, again, it's just the exact same. You just need to remember to move the decimal point back two spaces. Okay, so divide it by 100, decimal point starts here, move it back one space. That would be finding a tenth, but we want to find 100, so we've got to go one more space back, put the point here. So the answer for 235 out of 100 as a decimal is 2.35. Now this is an interesting one. 7 out of 100, 7 hundredths. Again, it is the exact same as saying 7 divided by 100. As long as you remember to move that decimal point back, then you're absolutely fine. There's 7. Let's move our decimal point back one space, two space. Let's put the point here, placeholder here, 0 point, placeholder 0.07. 0.07. If that was 6 out of 100, it would be 0.06. If that was 5, it would be 0.05. Okay, so that's how you convert fractions that are out of 100, and that's how you convert them into decimals. So that's our hundredths as decimals. Now, what happens if they're already in decimal form? Well, all you need to do is think, right, I've got 0.78. If I move my decimal point forward 2 times, is if I'm multiplying by 100, it becomes 78. So it's just 78 out of 100. Same with this one, 63, right? Well, I'm going to have to move my decimal point forward again by multiplying by 100. So the point goes here. It's essentially saying 63.0, but you don't need to put in the 0.0 because that's just a placeholder. So 0.63 is 63 over 100. And 0.05, if we move our decimal point 1, 2 spaces, it just becomes 5, 5.0, 5 over 100. So that's how you put the decimal form back into a fraction that is out of 100. So I hope that makes sense. Now, some of the examples, and these examples will come up in the questions that you are going to answer to show your understanding, but some other examples that come up are ones like this, where they give you a key. For example, this whole rectangle is one whole, is equal to one whole. Now, this rectangle has been cut up into tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is equal to 1/10, okay? And this little piece here, this is equal to 100th, and that's what we're looking at today, our 100th. Okay, so our first example, example 1, what numbers are represented in the shapes below? Now, you can show this as a fraction, but you will definitely need to show this as a decimal. Now, you can see there is no whole. We don't have any whole numbers here, so there isn't going to be a whole. So let's work out how many tenths we have. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths. Okay, 5 tenths. And how many hundredths have we got? 1, 2, and we've got 3 hundredths. So to put that into a decimal, it is just the same as saying 0.53. Because this column here is our ones column. So if we look back at our place value, this is essentially our ones column, okay? This is our ones column, and we know that there's nothing there. There's our ones column. This is our tenths column, okay? 5 is in our tenths column. We know that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths. That's why 5 goes here. In our hundredths column, our hundredths, okay, we know that we've got 3 because we've got 3 little rectangles, 1, 2, 3. So this example as a decimal is 0.53. Let's see if you can manage the next one. So what numbers are represented in the shapes below? Okay. Now, how many whole parts have we got? We've got 1, 2, 3 whole parts. I'm going to write 3 here. So in our ones column, we've got 3. Now we're looking at the parts of the numbers that we've got in our tenths column and our hundreds column. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right, we've got 7 tenths. So we put 7 in our tens column. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 5 hundredths. So we put 5 in our hundreds column. So we've got 3 ones, as in 3 wholes, 7 tenths, and 5 hundredths. So the answer as a decimal is 3.75. Let's look at this example here, okay? Now it's asking you to draw this decimal, 0.47, as a diagram or a shape. So you're going to want this answer to look something like this here. 0.47, well, I need to first of all look at my ones column, which is here, my ones column. Now, I don't have any ones. I don't have any whole parts of 1 or 2 or 3. I've got 0. So I don't need to draw a whole part. So now I need to look at my tenths column. Right, I've got 4 tenths. So I need to draw 4 boxes. And thankfully, I have got them here. Okay, there is my 4 tenths. Now I look at my hundredths column and I've got 7 hundredths. So I'm going to have to draw 7 little 100 boxes and I've got them here. So that is what 0.47 as a shape or a diagram, that is what it looks like. So when that question comes up in your activity sheet, that is something that you can do. Obviously the number is going to be different from this one because I want you to show your understanding, but you follow the exact same steps and you will get the correct answer. What about this one here? Draw this decimal number as a diagram or a shape. Right, in my ones column, my whole ones column, because this is obviously a whole number, 4. So I need 4 whole parts and I've got them here. 4 whole parts. I then look at my tenths column. I've got 2 tenths. So I move my 2 tenths over here. There's my 2 tenths. And then I look at my hundreds column and I've got 6 of those. So I need to draw my 6 little rectangles and thankfully I've got them all ready here. So 4.26. 4 wholes, 2 tenths, and 6 hundredths, 4.26. And that's what that decimal looks like as a diagram or a shape, okay? Now, this is also another question that will come up as well. What value is the 6 worth in each of these numbers? What value is the 6 worth here, 6 worth here, 6 worth here? Right, 67.89. Right, 67, the 6 goes here. 67, point is already in place. 89. So I've got 6 tens, which is worth 60. I've got 7 ones. Here's my decimal point. Here are my numbers that are not whole. I've got 8 tenths here, 8 tenths and 9 hundredths. So what is the 6 worth? Well, I know it's in my tens column, so I would just write T, or I could write tens. It's worth 60. Okay, what about in this example here? Okay, so we'll rub our numbers out and do this one here. So this, to me, reads as 571.62. Put 5 in my hundreds column, 7 in my tens, 1 and 1 in my ones column. 0.62. 571.62. My 6, oh, I know that that's in my tenths column because it's one place after my decimal point. So I could write it as tenths, or I could even just write a little fraction as tenth like this, tenth. We'll just do the last one. Maybe you could try doing it on your own without me talking through it. You could pause it, pause the video. Question 3, 79.26. Well, I know 7 is going to be in our tens column, 9 is in our ones column, and whoops, 2 goes here and 6 goes here. 79.26, and I know that 6 is in the hundreds column. So I could write hundreds, or I could just draw a little fraction to show that I know that it's in the hundreds column. So that's how you identify the value of decimals when they're written out in number form, okay? And a couple of those questions do come up in your activity sheets. So hopefully you understand this explanation of them. Now, another example that I'd like to show you is when you are asked to order decimals from smallest to biggest. I actually find this easier than ordering fractions because all you need to really look at, first of all, if you've got a set of decimals, you need to look at your ones column. Okay, your ones column. If the decimal doesn't have any in the ones column, then you know it's going to be very small. So for example, I've got 0.67 and I've got 0.05. Now, which one do we think is smaller? Now 0, we've got no ones here and we've got no ones here. We've got 6 tenths, there's 0 tenths here. They've got 7 hundredths and 5 hundredths. So because of these two zeros, 0.05, which is the same as 5 over 100, is much smaller. Okay, that's the smallest. If I wrote that as a fraction, it would look like this, 5 over 100. Oops. 0.67 as a fraction would look like this, 67 over 100. Okay. Now I can look at my other 3 digits. Now, my ones column here, I've got a 1 in this one, got a 2 in this ones column, and a 9 in this ones column. And I know that 1 is smaller than 2 and smaller than 9. So 1.75 has to come next in my list. Now 9 is bigger than 2, so 2 has to then come next. Okay, and 9.79 is the biggest decimal in this little list. I hope that makes sense. You just need to make sure you're looking at the place value of each numbers and figure out which one is the smallest and which one is the biggest, okay? Now, this is just before I end the video, a quick reminder, when you're dividing a number by 10, which, you know, that counts as a tenth, which we've been looking at, you just need to remember to take off a 0 or move the decimal point back 1 space. So if you've got 60 divided by 10, okay, you can use your times tables to help you work that out by using the 6 times table or asking yourself how many 10s go into 60. But if you just knock off a 0, okay, if you just knock off a 0, then you will get your answer, which is 6. Because if we knock this off, the answer is 6. It's the same if I wrote 70. 70 divided by 10 is 7. 80 divided by 10 is 8. If you've got a decimal, 2.3 divided by 10, again, all you're doing is moving the decimal point back one space. So that becomes 0.23. Okay. Same if you had just, for example, the number 2. If you wanted to divide 2 by 10, again, you're moving the decimal point back one space and putting your placeholder in, so 0.2. Now, because we looked at tenths, that's why I wanted to go over that little example, but we're also looking at hundredths today. And if you are multiplying by 100, you would add zeros, but because we're dividing by hundreds today, you're going to take off those zeros. You take off 2 zeros or you move the decimal point back 2 spaces. So when you divide by 10, you just knock off 1 0 or you move the decimal point back 1 space. If you're dividing by 100, you take off 2 zeros or you move the decimal point back 2 spaces. So 200 divided, okay, by 100. If we take off our 2 zeros, the answer would be 2, okay? If I had, let me see, 235 as my whole number and I wanted to divide this by 100, okay, I need to just remember to move the decimal point back 2 spaces, 1, 2. So the answer is 2.35. If I had 2, so I'll just rub that out. If I had 2 and I wanted to divide that by 100, like this, 2 divided by 100, again, it's the exact same step. You're just moving the decimal point back 2 spaces. 1, 2. And you put the point here and you just need to remember your placeholders. 0 and 0. 0.02. Okay, that would be 2 divided by 100 is 0.02. And as a fraction, it's just 2 over 100. Now, that was the last thing I wanted to show you. I hope that you understood the video. You can pause it at any time. You can go back to certain examples if you just need to listen to it again, just so that you understand it a little bit better. These are the examples that will come up in your questions and your activity sheets. Try and challenge yourself. Try and maybe attempt all 3 of the activities, or maybe try spicy hot if you've been doing a lot of mild. Just have a go. And this is, these videos are here to help you as best I possibly can. So, and I've been really impressed with the work that I've seen so far in our fractions topic. So keep up the great work. Remember to ask for help if you need it on Teams, or just send an email to your teacher and send pictures of your work as well. We absolutely love looking through it and giving you feedback on that. So good luck. Let us know how you get on.